Hello, class. Now that we've discussed conditional operators, we can go into conditional statements where we use the operators. Conditional statements give you the ability to check conditions and change the behavior of a program. And the simplest of those is the if statement. The if statement within Python is pretty powerful because it allows you to go if a condition is met, perform this script block. Let's look at this a little further. Here's an example with an integer. Variable x equals 1. If x is greater than 0, print x is a positive integer. Here's the value of x. Well, since x is greater than 0, and this condition is met, because that statement is true, you can see within Python, it prints out the output. Well, what if that condition was wrong? What if we put a negative integer there, like 4? Save it, hit F5 to run, and now nothing happens. The if statement, then I do not get to print. Well, that's where we're going to move on to the else statement. But I wanted to show you that because if the condition is not met or if it's false, Python does not perform this script block. It does not do this if this is not met. So it fails open. If this is not met, it does not perform the task after the if statement. So let's move right along. You can also test them with strings. Here we have the variable name equals Steve, and we put if name is equal to Steve, print I know your name, Steve. And we see that output right here. Now these conditions you could also use not equal to. So if you use not equal to, we could change this to simply comment this out. Print I do not know your name. Save it, hit F5 to run. What happened there? Name is not equal to Steve. This is not equal to Steve. Steve is not equal to Steve. It's incorrect. It is equal. And I wanted to show you that this will not print because this statement was not met. Let's change it back to is equal. Save F5. And here it prints I do not know your name because I didn't comment it out. We'll comment that out. Go up here, delete that one. Save F5. And now we have our proper statement of name is equal to Steve. Steve is equal to Steve. Print I know your name, Steve. And that's what we get with the if statement. So that works well when you have one statement that you want to run a condition against. Well, often you have multiple possibilities. And this is where we'll discuss if's partner else. Else allows you to expand your conditions. So you have if this condition is met, run this script block. If this condition is not met, Python will jump down to the else clause and then attempt to perform this statement. So let's take a look at this. X is equal to 7. If x divided by 2 is equal to 0, it is even. Else, print it is odd. We see over here that when 7 is divided by 2, well, there's a remainder, and it's not 0. The modulo would be a 1. So this condition is not met. Python sees it's not met or false, goes down to the else block and performs this script block. which it does right here. So if and else are extremely powerful. Well, what if you need more than two possibilities? Hypothetically, what if you had to gauge a bunch of folks' heights entering an amusement park, which is one of your labs coming up? So we have the else-if statement, elif. It is an else-if statement. And this expands the possibilities for comparisons and conditional operators. So if this condition is met, do this. If this is not met, try this statement, else if this statement. If this is not met, do this. Let's take a look at that. X equals to 7, y equals 10. If 7 is greater than y, false. Else if 7 is less than y, true. It'll perform this script block, and off to this side we see Python does just that. You could have as many else-if statements as you want under an if. It is good practice to always end with an else statement. Do you have to? You'll see some examples online where they do an if, elif, and then no else. You'll find out that having an else after an elif statement is good practice, and you could use it as a catch-all. So if these two conditions were false, you could actually print the conditions were false. So there's multiple ways you could use if, elif, and else. And you could also nest your conditions. Let's talk about this for a brief second. Excuse me. So nested conditional statements. If this condition is met, do this script block. If this condition is not met, else, then you can have another block. If this condition is met, do this, else do this. Let's take a look. We'll stick with the 7 and 10 motif here. X is 7, y is 10. If 7 is equal to y, we know that's false. Else, if 7 is greater than y, false. Else, print y is greater than x. And over here we have y is greater than x. And this will end our brief discussion on conditional statements, covering if, else, and nested conditions.